when you saw the president try to fire Lisa Cook, he said you signed one piece of paper saying you're going to live in Michigan and another promising you're going to live in Georgia. Two different houses at the same time as a condition of getting your mortgage.
Like your primary residence, right?
Yes. And he's saying maybe that's fraud. We don't know, but it's enough to fire you. And so we, and I think a lot of other people in the press, got curious about, well, is she the only person that this has ever happened to? And by the way, I should mention that she said she's done nothing wrong, and she subsequently, documents have come to light to say, at least in one case, the bank was understanding this was going to be a vacation home. So we looked in it. Turned out that the Treasury Secretary himself had also signed, agreed to to live in two different places at the same time.
And there's the important context in your story and what you learned too from the reporting as far as who represented the Treasury Secretary in the signing of these documents. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So first of all, he didn't sign them himself. Mm-hmm. He gave power of attorney to a lawyer who signed on his behalf. But the bigger difference is there's really no chance that what Bessant did could possibly have been mortgage fraud, because both of the mortgages were from the same bank. It was all part of one big deal. Mm-hmm. It was one lender. So it wasn't like he was tricking one lender into thinking it was his primary residence and then going to a different lender and getting a loan.
So how is that different than the allegations against Lisa Cook?
So with Cook, she refinanced her longtime home in Michigan, mm-hmm. and then she bought a condo in Georgia from a different bank a couple weeks later, and in that mortgage signed a clause saying she would live there for the next year, and which she had also done in her Michigan one. Now, subsequently, a document came to light showing that in the Atlanta case, it looks like the bank had the understanding that this was actually going to be a vacation home. So the question is, well, why did it get papered this way? And you can ask a similar question about Bessant. Clearly, the bank didn't expect him to split himself in half and live in both places, and yet the paperwork got filed that way.
Yet he said it, right? That he said that both would be his principal residence.
He agreed to both of those mortgages, which both of them obligated him to live in those two different places.
I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming, Zach, you and the team are like looking at this, as you said, we've been talking about this in the newsroom, that we're thinking, gosh, didn't the government, when they thought about kind of going after Lisa Cook, think about, hey, anybody else had this situation? What are you finding out as you reported out this story, but just in general? Is this common?
I don't know about common, but there's another cabinet secretary, the Secretary of Labor, who has mm-hmm. kind of a fairly similar, two mortgages 2 months apart in two different states, where she's pledging to live there for the next year. So it's not super uncommon, because we found a few just in looking at the top officials in the government. It's probably not all that rare for people to actually do it because of fraud. But in all of these cases, the people involved or documents we've obtained show that they have at least a pretty good argument that this wasn't fraud at all, and that maybe mm-hmm. it was just a matter of not filing the paperwork in the right order. Mm-hmm. Typically, these things everyone signs basically the same mortgage agreement. And then if you have a second home, you sign another thing called a second home rider, which waives that occupancy clause. So if somebody forgets to put that in front of you and to file it, then maybe it just kind of slips through the cracks and no one cares, unless you happen to be on the Fed board.
As you and the team write, Charles Rich had power of attorney to sign Secretary Scott Bessent's documents on behalf of him. Rich, who signed the documents, wrote that Bank of America was fully aware that the Provincetown property was not a principal residence and waived any requirement that it be used as a principal resident. There was absolutely nothing improper about Mr. Bessent's loan applications, with which he was minimally involved, as he had delegated authority to me. So is it the end of the story?
So just to be clear, our story isn't saying that Bessant did anything wrong. Rather, mm-hmm. it's saying that maybe just because these two pieces of paper are filed saying you're going to live in two different places, it doesn't mean that you've necessarily committed mortgage fraud. Clearly, in Bessant's case, he didn't. And in a lot of the other cases that we've seen, there's often an innocent explanation that really, means that it's more of like a paperwork error.
Yeah, I do think about that, right? Just, getting it wrong, as you said, either not signing something or something not getting done.
If you guys have ever been to a closing for a house, you're asked to sign about 10,000 pieces of paper, It's like you get your hand gets tired from writing. I don't think there's that many people who've read every single word on every page. I certainly haven't.
I mean, when I think of mortgage, I don't know. When you think of mortgage fraud, I think of something
Nefarious?
more serious. Yeah, I kind of do.
Like intent.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a plan to kind of deceive either a lender or someone.
I don't think
like
it's that unusual though for somebody to buy a vacation home and when they get the mortgage, tell the lender they're going to live there even if they really won't. That would technically be fraud if they really intended to deceive the lender and get a more favorable interest rate.
Right.
But we haven't seen that in Bessant's case.
No.
And
Is there anything we have to understand about the difference between the words principal and primary?
the word in the papers is always principal.
It's always principal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it basically means, this is your real house, right? And no other. Yeah.
I also think it's different. You guys say this, how the situations are identical, and we've touched on this a little bit, Zach, but like Bessant's mortgages 2 decades ago, signed by his lawyer. He obviously was wealthy. There was no concern about his ability probably to manage any kind of loans. Cook signed hers personally and much more recently. There are distinctions.
Oh, there absolutely are. I think the common theme, though, is that if the Trump administration's view is that anyone who signs these documents that conflict with each other needs to be removed from office, then there are actually other people in Washington who are in that same situation, even if, and let me be clear, they didn't do anything wrong and are, not only didn't commit mortgage fraud, but didn't do anything wrong. In Bessant's case, probably wasn't even aware of it until we asked questions a few weeks ago.
I can't help but feel that there are lots of officials potentially right now looking at things, right, and looking at their documentation.
Right.
Saying, wait a second, going back and looking.
Well, that everybody's looking at it, and you're right, and it doesn't mean that anybody had intent to do something wrong. Does the investigation continue, or not even an investigation, but you guys continuing to look?
The court case is proceeding with Lisa Cook. She's contesting the Trump's attempt to fire her. She's for the moment she's participating with the Fed today,
right?
And so it's going to be up to the courts to decide. It could come down to whether she actually did defraud a lender or not, but it may not.
And as we heard from Jay Powell today, he will not comment on a court case that's ongoing.
No, he made it very, very clear.